What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Big Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Monday, January 10th, and this is the Black Friday show. Black Monday show, not Black Friday. It is Monday.
Sales. Everything's on sale.
Monday.
I'm going to blame the ESPN, the addition of multiple ESPN Saturday games on me not knowing what day it is, because after the Saturday night ESPN game with the Monday Night Football crew ended, I definitely thought it was Monday for like.
Is that retroactive? Because you haven't known what day it has been for years now. Breech is always correcting you at the top of the podcast.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, I usually don't even know what day it is until I pick up my phone, like after I say "What's up, everybody," and look up to see what the date is, so I can read it off of that. That's whenever I look down to say it's Monday, January 10th. I am looking down.
So, moral of the story: Brinson needs to start looking at his phone before the podcast starts instead of during the podcast.
It's actually a perfect microcosm of my life. So yes,
I think like 3 months ago I stopped doing that on the rundown, and Brinson's hit rate is about 50% ever since.
It's gotten better.
And also 3 months ago, Brinson thought it was May.
I mean, know that 1 year I actually forgot how old I was for 9 months. I thought I was older than I was. I thought I was like 38, I think, and I was actually 37. So I got a free year, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Also could be considered a moron, but either way.
I mean, when you spend your entire life in this tiny little box on YouTube, you tend to go a little insane.
Yeah, look at Breech. Breech he's been waiting for this for weeks.
All right, so we are this is the Black Monday Roundup show. There are YouTube videos for each of the individual firings that if you want a little treat, just me and Debo. Wilson was traveling, Breech was writing a newsletter. Debo staked his claim to be on-air talent by
mark the date. He's coming.
That fourth spot, it's just empty. Man. Is it that way or that way? I can't tell.
You get a real, it'd be to your left, Breech. You get a real, Diva's always so energetic and enthusiastic. And then he pops on the camera, like Monday, the day after the season is. It's just like, he's got bigger bags on his eyes than I do. Cause he had, finished the podcast at 3 a.m. and Devo has to stay up to edit it. So
did reach out to the former Force super friend, Sean, about, if he wanted to react to Matt Nagy being fired, and he declined the request.
Wow. Big time.
Well, he's going to be emotional about it for the next 3 weeks unless they hire Jay Cutler as head coach. So I understand why he didn't want to go on.
Josh Leggett, Dolphins fan, points out that I need to appreciate Debo more. I don't think you understand just how much I appreciate Debo. Although, but anyway, look, let's get to the show. YouTube.com/pick6. If you're listening elsewhere, you could do us a favor and hit the like button. If you're in the chat, feel free to comment away. Tell us who your favorite coaching. You can give us your list of the order that you think the best to worst jobs. You can give us a candidate for your favorite job, whatever you want. Hit the subscribe button. You'll get alerts when we go live. And if you hit the subscribe button, then you will get a 30-minute alert for our live shows. I know, because it's the worst thing that happens to me on Sundays when I realize that in 30 minutes I have to actually start working. If you're on Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. This weekend, NFL Super Wild Card Weekend is on CBS, featuring 2 can't-miss games. Saturday night at 8:15 Eastern, the Patriots and Bills renew their rivalry in primetime. Then, on Sunday at 4:30 Eastern, 2 legendary teams take center stage when Jimmy G and the 49ers clash with Dak and the Cowboys. Super Wild Card Weekend, Saturday night and Sunday afternoon on CBS and Nickelodeon. God, I want Mike McCarthy getting slimed so bad.
What's the name of the award again? The MVP?
MVP, Nickelodeon Valuable Player.
And fun fact, today, January 10th, is the 40th anniversary of the Cowboys and 49ers and the catch with Dwight Clark.
I thought you were going to say that it's the 40th anniversary of the first time somebody got slimed.
that would be a fun fact I would know.
You know what's sad?
By the way, I got that movie reference. That was the Howard.
There you go. Yeah, Breech trying to talk over me to talk about Everson Walls catch that inevitably led to the Bengals getting smoked in the Super Bowl. So I'm glad we got that in.
Yeah.
Dunk.
Even Breech called.
Oh!
But by the way, I do want to say one nice thing about Breech. We'll say
we have some controversy brewing. Sean Wagner McGough.
Oh, yes.
who I saved in my phone is Sean Wagner out of.
You know what I saved him as? Spanky Wankman.
Is he really in your phone?
And I saved him as Wank Spankyman.
He claims he received no request from Debo.
Debo, do you have a response to that?
Controversy. Should we see Debo? See if you shoot him a link and tell him to come on, jump on. We'll talk about the Bears real quick.
Very interesting. Debo got caught in a lie on live YouTube.
This is why Debo's dating app has to be erased.
Yeah, he can't trust him. That's what the issue is. I did want to say, and I'm sure you saw this, Brinson, but the outpouring of support for Jim Breech versus Jerry Rice on Twitter was absolutely spectacular. They were the leading scorers in the NFL. What year was that, Breech?
1987.
And they were on a football card together, like a Topps, or I don't know who made it, Don or Super made the card. And I scrolled through a lot of the comments, and I felt like 100% were pro Jim Breech. They weren't anti Jerry Rice, but everyone is pro Jim Breech, which is, I'm sure, something you cannot associate yourself with, because typically we're always dunking on you, but no one dunks on Jim Breech. There it is right there. Debo put it up on, if you're watching on YouTube.
It is from the Super 70 Sports Twitter account, which I do not run, by the way, despite what some people may think. And the question on it,
because nobody thinks that, because in his bio it says Ricky Cobb 7.
you don't know what my burner account is. People used to call me Ricky Cobb in high school.
He's Ricky Cobb 6. We all know that.
They said, "Hey, little Ricky Cobb."
John Breech's email address is johnnybad18@beep.com.
It's in my Twitter profile. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but I did. It is hilarious, Wilson. So yeah,
this is too much nonsense at the top of the show.
Yeah, let's get to these coaches.
I want to say something nice after I jumped on them.
All right, that's very kind.
I'm loopy. So already fired. Let's go through the list here. Urban Meyer fired ahead of time. John Gruden resigned ahead of time. Vic Fangio fired on Sunday morning, which, again, I understand you want to get it out of the way if you play Saturday night. No more teams that might fire their coaches on Saturday night in Week 18, please. NFL.
Why? Just because it inconveniences you?
Well, because some of us have to do an emergency podcast Sunday morning, Wilson. You wouldn't know about that, though.
Yeah. I was lounging in the hotel pool, I'll be honest.
Fired on Monday, Brian Flores of the Miami Dolphins, Mike Zimmer of the Minnesota Vikings, and Matt Nagy of the Chicago Bears. All of those guys, Mike Zimmer and GM Rick Spielman also fired. With Nagy, GM Ryan Pace also fired. Brian Flores, GM not fired. We'll get into that. Chris Greer stuck around. And also sticking around, Joe Judge, although Dave Gettleman, the GM, retired.
Brinson's using air quotes for those of you not watching on YouTube.
His contract was up.
Bunny quotes.
And that moment of silence was not a moment of silence for Joe Judge. That was me giving a big old wink of the eye, because he wasn't retired. He didn't retire. He was gracefully fired.
His contract was up, I believe.
Okay. And Matt Rule, David Culley, status still unknown, and Rich Bisaccia, the Raiders interim coach, is in the playoffs. So, what are we going to do about that?
Applaud them.
Some coaching. So, of these firings, I guess we haven't talked to you guys about this, which seems weird. Anything surprising? Brian Flores was surprising.
Hugely surprising.
Okay. I've been talking about Brian Flores all day, so I guess I'm no longer mentally surprised.
No, I was driving back home from Connecticut, and I made my usual pit stop at the halfway point, and I checked my phone, and I said, Brian Flores was like, what year is this? I thought maybe I've been driving into the future, and 20 years from now, the Dolphins had hit a rough patch. That team won 10 games last year, and Breech and I talked about often that, you don't bench Ryan Fitzpatrick, you go into the playoffs. That team still won 10 games. They went 9-8 this year. Got red hot at the end. I think they won 8 of 9, Breech. Is that right? They won 7 in a row, then lost last week, and then won yesterday. And yeah, I get it. The games that they played weren't against top flight competition. They still won them. Tua got better. The team seems to play for him. They seem quite happy to, he was a leader of men, as we like to say. I was blown away. Stephen Ross, the owner, who's a Michigan alum, said this has nothing to do with Jim Harbaugh. It smells fishy. Like, I don't know why you would fire Brian.
It's a Dolphins fan.
By the way,
you didn't mean to do that, did you?
No, but I always want to say when people say the fish just scored or whatever, Dolphins are amphibians. So let's come on. And I just call them amphibians. They're mammals. But my point is, like, I always say this about quarterbacks. We're like, okay, we're going to get rid of this quarterback. What's plan B? Who's going to come in and because I would imagine I do wonder if Tua is not going to be in their plans. I sort of wonder how that.
Well, and look, and you've been driving around all day, so I don't expect you to be caught up on everything. But
on the scuttlebutt.
Yeah, I mean that genuinely. I know.
No, I know. What is it? Tell me.
Well, it's that, and I cracked a beer. For some reason, all my beers are like overflowing. They're like,
what a humble brag.
No, they're like, when I open them, they run everywhere. I don't know what's going on.
What do they run to?
All right, go ahead. Please tell me that I'm going to kill myself. Let's go.
Flores, according to Charles Robinson of Yahoo, who we all regard as a very reliable source of information, Flores was the one pushing Deshaun Watson. And Charles Robinson believes that the market for Deshaun Watson will now reset as a result, and that that was me throwing a paper towel, and that the Dolphins may not be in on Deshaun Watson. The battle all year long was between Chris Grier and Brian Flores.
Thank you. I'm learning things on the
Grier is the one who's been pushing Tua. So if you want to dive into the Tua-anon,
that's great. That makes things saucy. Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, that Brian Flores was not fired. I mean, he was fired for cause and because they didn't make the playoffs in 3 years, but he was mostly fired because of the deteriorating relationship with the coach who won a power struggle with the owner. Grier has been there for 20 years. Flores just, pieced together the first back-to-back winning seasons in Dolphins history since 2002 and 2003. But by all means, keep the guy who's been around for the last 20 years. That's probably the smart move.
4-2 against the Patriots. I mean, very successful, but this obviously this was as soon as it happened and they weren't firing Grier and you saw that, hey, we're firing the head coach, not the general manager. It was clearly irreconcilable differences. I mean, that was obvious. And the quarterback seemed like the obvious position where they had a difference of opinion and no one's willing to budge. And Flores is thinking, we're not, I've watched Tua play for 2 years now. He is getting a little bit better, but we're not winning Super Bowl with him. We need to go make a Super Bowl winning move because we have so much talent around him. And Grier's like, yo, man, I drafted Tua and we're winning with Tua. And, if no one's willing to budge there, then you can't work. You can't coexist.
Well, that's my thing. Like as good as I like Brian Flores, and he seems like I just said all the laudatory things about him. But if he's dead set on Tua and Chris Grier drafted Tua,
if he's dead set on Deshaun,
and Chris Grier drafted Tua ahead of Justin Herbert, I think you want to give Tua an opportunity. I think Tua has played better. That explains what happened last year, Breech, where
sure does.
The push-pull with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa being out there. And in retrospect, I would assume that Flores wasn't happy about having to put Ryan Fitzpatrick on the bench, even though he had to face the media and explain all that. I sort of get it. Like, I understand why you have to move on from Flores if he's a Tua guy and you're not, right or wrong. I think Flores is probably going to not be able to work very long. But that's I don't want to say a weird hill to die on because Deshaun Watson is better than Tua. And I get it. But if the organization, everyone but you, is on a different page, I don't know if it makes sense to keep fighting that battle.
Well, it might not even be just Watson. Obviously, if Flores is leading the Watson train, that's one thing. But if Stephen Ross says, hey, we're not getting Deshaun Watson, Flores might be saying, well, can we just get a new quarterback? I don't care who it is. Can be Russell Wilson, trade for Aaron Rodgers. Get me somebody in here who's not Tua. And that, we don't know.
That still makes Chris Grier look terrible.
But Flores might have been at the point where, I know we cannot be a Super Bowl contender with Tua and we need to fix the quarterback position. And Grier says, yeah, we're not doing that. We have a quarterback that we used top 10 draft pick on. So yeah,
right.
Bye.
Well,
bye.
And remember too that Stephen Ross was obsessed with Tua and the tank for Tua, and we got to figure out a way to get Tua. And Chris Grier navigated it in a way that drew him a large amount of praise from the media. They secured a bunch of extra picks as well in in various trades. And look, I mean, when you have the guy in the front office is probably going to win the power struggle 90% of the time because the coach isn't dealing with Stephen Ross all the time. The GM is answering to Stephen Ross. And it obviously depends on the structure of the different organization, but more often than not, you saw it in San Francisco. I mean, Jim Harbaugh winning a bunch of games. Additionally, in the same vein as Jim Harbaugh, everything that's been leaked out and you can smell where it's coming from, but it's like Brian Flores. Fishy. Yeah, it's a little fishy. It's like Brian Flores allowed like relationships within the building to deteriorate. He's abrasive, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, you know what? He's winning football games. And you guys don't win football games, and you've been terrible for, They've had 7 winning seasons in the last 20 years, and 2 of them have come under Flores in the last 2 years.
What's something I was thinking about, and I don't know if there's a correlation or not, if it's just circumstantial, but it is interesting. So Brian Flores just got canned, 10 wins last year, 9 wins this year. Steve Wilkes was terrible in his first year, but he got run off after 1 year. My guy Jim Caldwell, 9-7 in back-to-back years. They wanted Matt Patricia when the new GM came in. David Culley's going to get fired after 1 year. It sounds like, and these guys
all their names start with consonants. Is that what
That's one thing, but there's something else that's sort of odd about it, that you get 1 and done or 2 and done if you win 10 games your first year to get an extra opportunity. It's just weird, and it could be very much coincidental, but it was something I was thinking about going, because I was driving home thinking, God, Brian Flores got fired. What in the world did he do that we don't know about? And it does make some sense, the dynamic with Chris Greer and the anti-Tua, pro-Tua conversations.
Yeah, look, it does feel like, and I know that there's like a big argument. I don't want to get into this, but it's like, people were saying, it's like, how can you fire? Chris Greer is also black. Not that helps matters. I'm just saying that it wasn't like it doesn't feel like he targeted the black head coach, right?
No, it felt like more of just a power struggle that head coach.
Well, and he would also be someone who understands the optics of firing a successful coach, and so that clearly tells you how bad and strained the relationship probably was for it to get to this point.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So that's sort of where we're at in terms of the Dolphins. And look, because Chris Greer is still there and because Tua is there, it's basically Giants South, right? You have
what do you mean?
Well, you have whoever is going to be the head coach better like Tua. That eliminates a pool of candidates.
Does it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me see how much salary cap space I have. I don't think this is a terrible job. And
we'll get to that. Let's
no, but I mean in terms of let's see what they have. Oh my God, they're going to have $72 million in cap space.
Yeah, a lot of cap space out there.
Ooh. Okay. I mean that's incredibly attractive.
The Dolphins have not requested any interviews with anyone yet.
My source tells me that Stephen Ross will coach the team next year.
Stephen Ross said that he will not be the guy who pulls Jim Harbaugh away from Michigan. Kind of interesting. It was sort of thought that maybe he had Jim Harbaugh in his back pocket.
I will say this now, knowing everything that you just told me when I sort of was flying blind when I came in here.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh makes sense now.
But Stephen Ross did a press conference and said, I will not be the
I understand that.
What if he just wants to leave? What if Harbaugh is the one that it's his decision and it's not Ross pulling him away, but Harbaugh just deciding to leave? I think that's where maybe the Ross comments get lost in translation. There could be a little loophole there.
Ooh, nice. And when Harbaugh went to San Francisco, he revitalized Alex Smith's career. He made Colin Kaepernick a really good quarterback. They got to the Super Bowl. So maybe that's the thinking with Tua. He can fix those guys. Then Tua can take the next step and become and Tua's gotten better. I wasn't crazy about Tua last year. He has gotten better through all the tumult. It's a word I keep hearing very often in recent days, which is weird. But he's played better through what appears to be a pretty crazy time, given that his coach wasn't crazy about him.
Yep, for sure. Interviews of note. So the Broncos, of course, as we mentioned, fired Vic Fangio. George Payton. Is it Patton or Peyton?
Peyton.
It's Peyton. Yeah.
Peyton.
George Payton, still the GM there. They are, they're going to undergo an ownership change in the next 18 to 24 months, I would guess.
The Dolphins?
The Broncos.
Oh, sorry.
We switched teams, Ryan.
Okay.
While you were sipping your drink, Brinson did a 180 and flipped it on you.
Yeah.
All right, my bad. All right, yep, I agree with that part.
That's why you don't take drink sips when Brinson's talking.
That has to factor into the attractiveness of the job and what candidates will be willing to take the job. They have requested permission to talk to Gerard Mayo, I believe he's the linebackers coach with the Pats.
Yep. Yeah, shout out to our listener last night who asked if he might be a candidate, and I didn't think he would because he's a positional coach with the Patriots, and the Belichick coaching tree hasn't been huge, but who knows? Maybe the Broncos can go off the deep end and hire him.
It's been huge, but
people are floating him as the next Mike Vrabel, as in the sort of the guy who played for Belichick and has worked under Belichick, but not necessarily for whatever reason the guys who
he doesn't count as a coaching tree. He's like the flowers that bloomed off to the side.
Yeah, even though he is a coach. Yeah, I mean it's I think it's just a little different when you played for Belichick for whatever
Right.
reason. So I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Vrabel didn't coach for Belichick, just so
no, he did not. Coach for Urban Meyer, though.
Yikes. And according to reports, had an altercation with him at Ohio State, which is funny when you hear about it.
Broncos also request permission to talk to Cowboys defensive coordinator and Cowboys offensive coordinator Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, and Chiefs offensive coordinator and former Colorado legend Eric Bieniemy. The Jaguars, or actually really quickly on the Broncos, did any of those guys stand out? People are kind of poo-pooing Dan Quinn getting another job. Dude took a team to the Super Bowl. Why are you surprised by that, folks?
Yeah, I'll come back.
Defense looks awesome.
I'll come back to what I've said all the time. Maybe he's a better coordinator than coach. And you mentioned he took a team to the Super Bowl. I get that. But he's absolutely dominated as a DC this year. And he took a Cowboys defense that was atrocious last year. And they got Micah Parsons. I get it. But he's not the sole reason that team got better. So, yeah, I don't mind interviewing him. But, you know, sometimes this time of year we also talk about, and no disrespect to Dan Quinn, but, you know, retreads in terms of like recirculating all the guys that previously had head coaching jobs. And how often does it happen that a guy gets a second chance and he does much better than he did the first time around?
Belichick.
John Fox went to the Super Bowl.
Belichick did a great job the first time around. Dum.
In Cleveland, he did okay.
Took the Browns to the playoffs, pal.
Yeah, that's not great.
The Browns.
He didn't win a Super Bowl. This is in the 80s and the 90s when
He
the Browns were
moved to
good.
Baltimore before he could.
The Browns
win.
went to multiple AFC title games in the 80s. It's not like he took over some horrible franchise.
All right, give me another example since you dunked on me with that one.
John Fox went to a Super Bowl with the Broncos after taking the Panthers.
Yeah, I think you would say Peyton Manning may have something to that, but fair enough.
Good job selection.
Yeah, I know.
Peyton wasn't there when he got there. He won a playoff game with Tim Tebow
against the Steelers. I have to say,
and Adam Gase working for him.
Again, a guy who's a great coordinator. Okay,
Mike McCarthy won the division.
All right, you're good. Great. Those are better examples than what Breech came up with.
Well, I came up with one, and it was brilliant.
I thought Dan Quinn. Yes, the Falcons went off the deep end and were terrible down in the last 3 years of his tenure. I do think that it's possible that Super Bowl loss just.
By the way, Josh Leggett points out Andy Reid did a pretty good job once he.
Oh, Andy Reid did a great. God. Wilson, all right,
Tony Dungy.
I stand corrected.
Oh my God, Dungy won a Super Bowl in his second spot too.
Bill Parcells.
Oh, now you're looking it up. You went with Bill Belichick off your head.
So I think what we learned here is that it's quite common.
Yeah, I'm glad that glad we turned to the comments and not listen to John Breech, who went with Bill Belichick as his first choice as a terrible example.
Wilson,
great example.
How often does this work out? Well, here's 17 examples of it working really.
This guy won 6 Super Bowls in his second coaching job.
Hey, I stand corrected. Unlike you two, b-holes, I can admit when I'm wrong.
Fair enough.
And I was wrong.
You're acting like Baker Mayfield. It's because of the shirt, isn't it?
Hire Dan Campbell.
Standoffish.
I'll tell you this. Credit to my buddy CJ in the old FSM chat, but he pointed this out because I said I floated that maybe Brian Flores could be the guy to come to Houston if they decide to part ways with David Culley, because he could, like, Deshaun Watson, it was reported today too by Charles Robinson, Deshaun agreed to waive his no trade clause to go to Miami because of Brian Flores. So
yeah, but isn't also because of the owner and the other guy that's just below the owner, Easterby.
Yeah. But so then CJ in the chat pointed out that the move could actually be Denver hires Brian Flores.
There we go. Yes.
And then trades for Deshaun Watson.
I was going to say, like, if they get Aaron Rodgers in Denver and then you bring Brian Flores in, you get the quarterback, then now you're cooking with gas.
Yeah. So that would be kind of interesting. I'm very curious to see if the Broncos decide to look at Brian Flores and potentially go that direction. But again, with an ownership change coming, that's a big move to make, and we don't know what Deshaun Watson's future is.
I think Brian Flores is one of the best candidates out there, assuming that there are no sort of lingering issues with him and needing control of the.
And also, we won't hear immediately. Look, Brian Flores got fired today. He's probably going to spend some time with his family. You don't have to ask permission to interview him. He's a free agent, so. We may not be leaked out quite as quickly if he's interested in doing that. The Jaguars are going to interview Darrell Bevell, their interim head coach, and also Nathaniel Hackett, they are believed to be interested in talking to Doug P. That's Doug Peterson, for those that don't listen to the podcast regularly. Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich, Jim Caldwell. I was like, Dave Caldwell. Why are they calling him again? Matt Eberfluss, Bill O'Brien, and Dan Quinn as well. I would note that there's an internet rumor.
That was Brady Quinn. It's just his last name.
I'd be down with Brady Quinn. There's an internet rumor out there that if Byron Leftwich is hired for a head coaching position, he wants to bring as his GM Adrian Wilson, former NC State legend, High Point guy. Shout out Andrew.
So that rules him out for the Jacksonville job.
I thought you were talking about my son, my 10-year-old, who's named Adrian.
No.
That's Adrian Wilson.
You're like, what? No, Adrian.
I think he's a scout for the.
He's actually in the front office now.
He's now in the front office. Okay, great.
The Cardinals front office loves Wilson. They think he's done a great job, has GM potential, smart dude. And so, yeah, you could say it rules out Jacksonville, but if Jacksonville was like dead set on going Byron Leftwich, they could have a situation where they just move on from Trent Baalke, I believe. That's not out of the question.
Wait, what is that? Brinson gut talking, or is that something we've seen reported somewhere?
That's a bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, if the Jaguars decide Leftwich is the guy, and they're like, Byron, we want to bring you, I'm coming home, and all that stuff, like coming back to the place where his career started. And he's like, that's cool, but I'm not coming with Baalke as a GM. I think a lot of teams will Baalke at Baalke or Baalke at Baalke.
A lot of teams,
a lot of players, a lot of coaches.
Yeah, but Shad Khan reportedly is buying into Trent Baalke and is gonna. I don't know if he's come out and said it, or we've just seen reports where he stands firm with his decision to keep him. And I don't know why he can't. And it's not just Shad Khan. We've seen several owners who just can't get out of their own way. We talked about David Tepper last night. In terms of his impatience and wanting to win and the demands that he reportedly made on the next OC in Carolina. I don't know why Shad Khan would say suddenly, oh, let's switch things up, because he seems to think his way is working. If he wants Trent Baalke, I think. And Trent Baalke, as you know, like Chris Greer, he's always hanging out with the owner saying, well.
Trent Baalke's a power player, Game of Thrones mastermind type.
So, yeah, I think that's going to play a much bigger part than maybe you think.
No, I think it's a big factor. I'm just saying that I'm just floating out what the buzz on the internet was.
Okay.
The Bears have requested to interview Leslie Frazier, and the Panthers, who are trying to find a rock star for OC, are interviewing Pep Hamilton.
Nice, good for him.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good. He was the. Was he the OC or the quarterback? He was the quarterback's coach with Herbert last year.
Right.
And he is, I didn't realize, I forgot about that. He's born in Charlotte.
Oh,
went to high school in Charlotte.
Good chance for him to go home.
He was the passing game coordinator and quarterback coach with the Texans last year. Remember we talked about this with Pep Hamilton? We're like, man, that's a tough to you go from Herbert and now you got to go do this thing with the Texans, but Davis Mills looked good this year.
Yeah, he's your favorite player, I think.
Well, and that's, do you think he would think about staying in Houston? Because you don't want your first NFL offensive coordinator job to be in a spot where you have no idea what the offense is going to look like. The Panthers don't have a great offensive line. The quarterback situation is dog doo-doo, as Ryan would say.
He was the Colts offensive coordinator for 3 years.
You don't want your second with Andrew Luck. I should have known. He was the Stanford's offensive coordinator.
Breech
when I covered the Pac-12 with, I forgot he followed Luck, but whatever. You don't want
covered him when he was the offensive coordinator.
I know. That's what I just said. That's why it's even more embarrassing. You don't want to. He's done such a good job in Houston that you don't want to jump into a situation that it's not like he's definitely going to fail, but it's not an easy situation to succeed.
You're taking Sam Darnold with a bad offensive line. Like it could be a problem.
Sam Darnold is not going to be the quarterback.
Well, that's even worse because then you don't know who it is behind a bad offensive line.
It can't be worse. What's worse?
Matt Rule was asked today about Sam Darnold being the quarterback or about the fifth-year option thing, and he was like, like he couldn't believe somebody asked him the question so directly. He like stumbled all over it and it was like, it was a group effort, and then like made this face that somebody zoomed in on his face. It was like clearly just like David Tepper made me do this. So those are some interesting rumors. Let us take a break, and when we come back, we will rank the vacancies from worst to first.
Ooh.
Next. All right. So here's how we're going to rank these coaching vacancies. We are not, out of respect for the Raiders being in the playoffs and the preposterous nature. Although I did see that they were ranked, they were mentioned on the on NFL Network earlier. So that, for whatever it's worth,
Doesn't make it right.
No, Judy Batista actually suggested that it would be the best opening. If the Raiders were to come open,
they're a playoff team that's won 4 games in a row, and they're going to win 5 games in a row in just a few days.
Why would you say that, Ryan? I dare you to pick them. I dare you to. I bet you don't pick them. And then when he doesn't pick them, we have to play the dunk music on him.
Okay. Problem solved.
Yes. I'm just curious where the Raiders would sort of like, I just want to have a quick discussion on the Raiders. Like, do we think that, what do we think they do? I do believe that if Jim Harbaugh, not because it's Jim Harbaugh, he's great.
You think Mark Davis would just learn his lesson? You don't need to make a big splashy hire. You have a guy who's winning games. Stick with him.
Mark Davis drives a conversion van and wears white jumpsuits. You think he's going to learn his lesson after one mistake? Come on, man.
You would think.
Van. He's been sitting on that joke for a while. Here's the thing. No, of course, yeah. Here, I think Breech is. I think Brinson's actually right, because don't forget, like, Jack Del Rio won 12 games in 2016, and
Mark Davis made him fire himself.
A year later, who was announcing that Gruden's going to replace him? Jack Del Rio.
Del Rio. He's like, we got some news, guys. We're hiring John Gruden as the head coach.
No, I don't disagree. I'm just saying that you would think that Mark Davis would learn his lesson about splashy hires. I do think Brinson was about to say, and I was going to agree with it. I think if Jim Harbaugh is willing to take the Raiders job, they will hire him in a second. But if they don't, or if he's not interested, then I think maybe they stick with Bisaccia. I think you've got to give him.
You have to.
Yeah, I think you have to give him the job. So I think it's going to be Harbaugh. And if Harbaugh doesn't want it, then you stick with your interim coach.
And Wilson's joking, I think, maybe. But if the Raiders take down the Bengals, I don't even know that you can replace him with Harbaugh.
No, he doesn't replace anyone.
If he goes and wins you a playoff game, you need to name him the full-time head coach after
he just
the playoff
won.
game.
He effectively won a playoff game in Week 18. That was a huge win. And we sort of talked about it when I was doing HQ, and we may have talked about it on the podcast. But if you sort of play for a tie in that game, that's less sort of ammunition in your favor to be like, this is why I deserve the job. By the way, so 2016 is when Jack Del Rio went 12-4. When was the last time prior to that the Raiders won at least 10 games?
2002 when they won the Super Bowl would be my guess.
Brinson?
I could be wrong.
When they won the Super Bowl?
2002.
Or they lost it. They lost it. I'm trying to revise history for Raiders fans.
Yeah, that sounds about right. 2002.
That's right. The Buccaneers. They lost to Gruden, ironically enough. Yeah, that's right. 2002 is the last time. Prior to that, they never won more than 8 games.
They've been terrible for.
And then you just send Jack Del Rio out there to chop his own head off. Just don't overcomplicate it.
I also am intrigued at least to see one off season where Mike Mayock is actually in charge of making the draft picks.
Well, we just saw a report that they may be looking for a new front office person as well
to replace Mayock.
Yeah, I'll double check, but I saw that over the weekend.
Oh yeah, I think anything's up in the air with the Raiders, but that's also before they went out and beat the Chargers and got in the play.
Right. I think if they bring in someone new, they might replace Mayock, but I think if they stick with Bisaccia,
Harbaugh's not coming in to work with Mayock. If Harbaugh came in, Harbaugh's going to want his own GM after the whole Trent Baalke stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, that's sort of where the Raiders are at. I think it's a wait and see. Yeah, if you get blown out by the Bengals and you look woefully overmatched in Derek Carr's first playoff game.
If you let the Bengals end their 31-year playoff drought and you lose by 31 points to them, that's trouble.
Yeah. JLC reported that Raiders expected to move on.
Thank you, Devo.
Okay. I just think everything changes when you get in the playoffs. I don't think the Raiders thought they were going to the playoffs.
But also, maybe Bisaccia doesn't want the job. Maybe he's like, hey, Mark, I'm going to finish this out.
Everybody wants a head coaching job.
Well, I mean, not everyone.
Bisaccia kind of looks like he should be the Raiders coach, too. Like, he just has like a look about him.
The total Raiders guy.
Anyway, that's sort of where we're at with the Raiders. We don't want to rudely, I guess we did just discuss what they'll do, but you get the point.
No, I didn't. I'm pro Rich.
Yeah, I kind of like Rich. So the five teams that we're going to rank: Jacksonville, Denver, Miami, Minnesota, and Chicago.
Let me start the conversation this way, if I may.
Yep.
Which of these organizations has the best ownership?
Well, I don't know if you guys got to watch the Bears press conference today.
I saw Joe Musso tweeting, and I thought he was going to jump off of a roof.
Effing S. The McCaskey family, I don't think I'd really done a deep enough dive on these clowns until like looking at it. So George McCaskey, who said, I'm a fan, not a football person.
So here's the backstory, because I was talking to Joe Musso, who's our colleague and a huge Bears fan, grew up in the Midwest. So Virginia McCaskey's in her late 90s. She is the daughter of George Halas.
Yes.
So she married to the McCaskey family. George, I believe, is her son, who is in his 70s. Like he's the guy running the thing.
He looks like a professor of like
philosophy.
No, like a professor, like a intro to calculus professor. I mean, I should grab some of these things, but like he is so unbelievable. Like,
look at him. Oh,
his press conference was an absolute disaster.
No, he's a guy that runs like a natural history museum.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, runs a natural history museum. That's a great call, Wilson. He said. He was asked, they were like, so George, look, you've been doing this for 11 years. At one point, at what point are we going to look at are the Bears going to look at your record? Look at this goober.
And to the right, you'll see the woolly mammoths.
It's the tour guide, not even a
mm-hmm. But the whole thing about having a clueless owner or someone who admits they're a fan that doesn't actually know anything about football is that if you're going to have an owner like that, owners are like that. Like some of these guys just run businesses. They don't know anything about, well, hold on.
Okay. That's right.
Is that they don't know anything about running a football team. It's not the same thing as running a business. And so you've got to be smart enough you don't know what you don't know. And so you've got to bring in smart football people. And that's what these teams have struggled to do. Like you can't have the same people. If it's not working, you can't have the same people in there for 10 years, like the Dolphins, or you got to clean house eventually and say, all right, we need to start over because what we're doing is not working. And they just keep sticking with the same people.
Problem. The McCaskies are the problem. He was asked about the Bears' poor record. I'm just reading my tweets here. Asked about his record under the leadership of the last 10 years. And he said, quote, ownership has informed me it wishes me to continue in this role, end quote, as chairman of the Bears. Ownership is mommy.
Right.
Your mom is ownership. Your mom says she doesn't want to fire her son from her job because she believes that he can win something for the Bears. They brought in Bill Polian early, like a few weeks ago in the middle of the season McCaskey said that Polian was involved in the decision to retain or replace Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. I don't disagree with the firing of those two guys, but Bill Polian hasn't done anything in the NFL since like 2011, excuse me. He was fired by the Colts when Peyton Manning was cut, and he hasn't been in the NFL. He most recently suggested that Lamar Jackson, former MVP, should move to wide receiver before the draft. Whoops. He once claimed he had a first-round grade on Tom Brady. Liar. So Polian,
I had a first overall pick grade on Tom Brady. I beat you, Polian.
The original junior draft analyst, John Breech.
Yeah.
and so they're basically handing this thing over to Bill Polian and letting him run the search and figure out who's going to be the coach and the GM. And McCaskey was asked, like, do you not want to have a football VP of football operations, somebody else? And he's like, no, we believe that the structure with the GM and the coach is the way to go, and that's how we'll handle it. And the GM, for the first time in the history of George McCaskey's 11 years running this thing, is going to report directly to George McCaskey, who again stated that I am, quote, a fan, not a football person. This is going to be a train wreck again.
So at least we know what would happen if a fan is running a football team.
Yeah,
that question's now been answered. That hypothetical.
Yeah.
No longer hypothetical.
And Ted Phillips, who's, I guess, is underneath McCaskey, he said, the hiring of Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, I don't regret that. You just fired them. How can you not regret it? The action of firing somebody that you hired is the regretment or the regretting of your hire. Like, what are we doing?
He's so angry. He's making up words.
I know. And then McCaskey there, he quoted his mother and said, she said, "I'm very, very disappointed." And she said it, quote, "as only a mother could." I mean, it was a marvel of modern football. They don't have a first round pick, as Northern Grower 4466 points out in the chat. They do have Justin Fields, so that's good.
It is good.
If you bring in the right coach.
Well, they also cut an offensive lineman and got rid of another one. And Charles Leno just signed a huge deal with Washington, I believe, one of the offensive line they got rid of.
There are some pieces on this team, like Khalil Mack's getting to the end of his contract.
Well, that's my original question. Which of these groups that we talked about has the best ownership? Because that's where you start the conversation if you're trying to be a coach.
Well, I mean, maybe the move is to kind of run through each organization and do pros and cons of them, and then we throw out our rankings at the end. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Rather than because we're not all going to have the. But I mean, I agree.
All right. Well, Jacksonville fans are dressing like clowns because they are so against their ownership. The Broncos don't have an ownership because they're going to be for sale soon or already for sale and might not. They're going to have new owners in the next 12 to 18 months.
Right. So in Denver, you could have either the NFL has said that they've vetted a bunch of guys. I mean, you can get David Tepper 2.0. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Jimmy Haslam, I think, is the previous newest owner prior to David Tepper.
Fired up to the max.
Fired up to the max. That's right. Miami's owner
clearly a problem.
Well, he sided with the GM, it appears, over the head coach who won 10 games and 9 games in back-to-back years.
I mean, the Dolphins have been terrible since he bought the team.
That's also true. The Vikings, I mean, the Wolves seem like decent folks. What are the downsides to the Wolves?
Well, I don't know. Ziggy Wilf looks a little weird. Like, that's about it. But
he runs the coffee shop next door to the American History Museum.
That's a great call too. Wow, Wilson, you're on fire today. The Wilfs hired Rick Spielman in 2006, and he was there from 2006 through 2021. I think Spielman did a pretty good job with the Vikings, all things considered.
And there were reports, maybe Chelsea, it may not be because I have a terrible memory, that he was in line to maybe perhaps get a promotion. And then I guess the last few weeks things changed clearly, and
where was he getting promoted to? Like,
I think it was going to be in between the GM and the owner on the way down.
Oh, he was going to be like the VP of football ops or something like that. Yeah. So Mike Zimmer was given a pretty long run. I mean, he had good seasons. He had some down seasons, but the Wilfs are the quietest of the ownership groups in terms of the staying out of the. I mean, the McCaskies are quiet too, but they clearly have their grubby little American History Museum hands all up in the business. So so I would rank Wilfs 1. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I would take the mystery box that is the Broncos number 100%.
2. No, that's
mystery box.
And they're not far behind 1, by the way.
No, they're not. Yeah. I think Chicago is last for me. The other 3 are pretty grouped together, and then Chicago. Here's my ownership list: 1, Minnesota; 2, Denver; 3, Jacksonville; 4, Miami; 5, Chicago.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, because after the first 2, then you have to go to quarterback and salary cap. Jacksonville's up there. Trevor Lawrence gets a slight edge over Tua, maybe more than a slight edge. And both Miami and Jacksonville have a ton of cap space. And then Chicago, as you mentioned, based on the press conference that we saw on Monday, gives you even more concerns than you had originally. And they have a lot of holes to fill in a division where if Aaron Rodgers stays there and if the Vikings can turn things around, they're again battling for 3rd place. And our guy Dan Campbell seems to be on the right track in Detroit.
All right. Well, let's dive in then. All right. So with Chicago, let's just wrap up the pros and cons. We did the ownership thing. Let's just the pros and cons of Chicago. With Chicago, you have Justin Fields. That's a big pro. If you like Justin Fields as a coach or a GM, that is a big, big, big plus.
Okay. I want to hear what the next big plus is.
They have some pieces in place. Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet are decent offensive pieces.
Oh, my Lord. You went straight from
how many players are they away from winning?
20 players away.
Exactly. You can't even count on 2 hands. You need 4 hands. There's 3. There's 4.
I mean, Tevin Jenkins was a high pick who, and
he didn't play till halfway through the season.
I'm not gonna decide effectively that Tevin Jenkins can't be.
I'm not either, but he didn't show a lot this first season. That's fine. It happens. But Breech said, how many players are they away? It feels like a lot.
There are a lot of players away. But
Jalen Johnson is a great cornerback.
Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson's a good player. No?
Joe Musso would disagree. He's had a tough year.
He's had a bad year, but he's. I mean, yeah, okay, that's fine. Had a bad year. Bears defense has been worse. Roquan Smith, good player.
Yeah.
Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, good players.
Yeah.
Getting older. Robert Quinn, great season, great player, but he's definitely older. So yeah, I mean, this defense is on the decline. But yeah, there are. This is not a completely barren roster. It's not a great roster. It's bottom third of the league for sure.
Okay, not knowing anything other than what we know today, who's going to win more games next year, the Lions or the Bears?
Or the Tigers? Lions and Tigers and Bears. Oh my
God. I would probably go with the Lions.
Well, that's my point.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm good with the Bears.
Okay.
But how many more games do you think they win?
Maybe like 2.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't think it's going to be. Yeah, I don't think the Bears are going to go like 12-5, and the Lions are going to go 5-12.
Right.
You can squint at the Bears roster and be like,
yeah. I mean, if you're Josh McDaniels and you think you can fix a quarterback or help a quarterback progress, then yeah, absolutely.
If Justin Fields takes a leap in year 2, then it changes.
Are we ranking these coaching jobs based on what we would want?
Yeah, I mean, sure, all the factors. So those are the pros. Any other pros and cons that we need to throw out for Chicago? Actually, a con that you referenced, Aaron Rodgers is a con.
Yeah, I don't think that's a con because I don't think he's going to be around much longer. So if you're going to be a coach that signs a 5-year contract, Aaron Rodgers is around maybe 1 or 2 years of that. I don't think he's around longer than 2 years.
Over under 3.5.
Under. I'm going under.
I don't know.
A lot of these guys only get a 2-year window. Like you
I think you probably thought Aaron Rodgers won't be around,
right?
But you're also dealing with a Vikings team that's going to have a new coach, a Lions team that, as well as Dan Campbell. We keep talking him up, but still, they only won 3 games this year.
Sure.
And then the Packers. We don't know how much longer Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. Maybe at the end of the season he does want out. There's still that element of mystery there. And let's just say he left. Then you feel like you could win the division next year. Somebody's got to win it.
That's a big if, though.
I mean, it's a huge if.
The Packers are like minus 700 to win the division if Rodgers is back.
As they should be.
Yes. Okay. So that's the pros and cons. Chicago, awesome city. That's a pro. Love Chicago. Cold as hell though.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's great if you want to drown your sorrows in losing.
Jeez.
Dang, Wilson.
The other thing too is like Chicago is in the same boat, I think, as Miami and Denver, and I would put Jacksonville and Minnesota in separate categories where.
Wait a second. Chicago. Why is Chicago, Denver, Miami in the same boat?
The media scrutiny in Chicago with the fan base scrutiny is extremely intense.
Well, that was the other thing. I think that the biggest benefit of Jacksonville is there's no pressure. Like, unless you're Urban Meyer and,
I was gonna say, Urban
doing
Meyer
lap
found
dances in an Ohio bar, as long as you don't do that stuff, there's no pressure on you.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly. Hold on. Let's move to Jacksonville then. Yeah, I mean, I think Jacksonville, the GM, if Trent Baalke is a major negative for me, a major con for me.
So tell me again,
who knows?
I'm not up on the Trent Baalke history. Why is he so divisive?
He and Harbaugh had the whole thing. But
Harbaugh's
an insane person. Yeah,
doesn't get along with a lot of people.
Right, but I'm just saying that he and Baalke.
Okay, well, to point to that, Trent Baalke has been the last 4 head coaches he's been a GM of have all been fired.
Oh, while he's still employed.
Yeah. Yes,
he cozies up to ownership and gets guys fired. Like
that would be Harbaugh, Tom Sula, Chip Kelly,
and Urban Meyer.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Trent Baalke has been described, I think, by many people as like a snake in the grass.
Okay, all right, I know now. Okay,
so that's a big negative for me when looking at the Jaguars job. The lack of pressure is a good one. The biggest pro is freaking Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you could be down on Trevor Lawrence or like more down on Trevor Lawrence than you were when he was drafted, but he looked pretty awesome against the Colts on Sunday. I'm still very high on Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, no one should not be. Not high.
Yeah.
Wait a second. I want to back up on the pressure thing. And I know Breech mentioned that Urban Meyer somehow defied logic and felt the pressure by doing stupid thing after stupid thing. But the fans are now paying attention. And the fan base, as you know, Brinson, what's the area code in Jacksonville?
Baalke also fired Doug Marrone. So that's 5.
Oh God!
No, they got rid of Dave Caldwell and then hired Trent Baalke.
No. They got Dave Caldwell and Doug Marrone got fired, and suddenly Trent Baalke
stuck around.
Yeah.
Oh, he's already on.
He's the guy that stuck around there.
But my point is to follow up on what Breech was saying about the lack of pressure to play in Jacksonville. Well, fans are now not happy. They're showing up in clown suits because they've had enough of Shad Khan, and I think that the media market may not be as intense as the other places we're talking about, but I would imagine Shad Khan understands what's going on, and certainly Trent Baalke, I would imagine, does too. So,
I think my point there is that if you look at these 5 open jobs and you go 4-13 in your first year next year, which job are you on the hot seat going into year 2? Not
Congratulations, you're just another Jaguars team.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But if you're Chicago or Minnesota or Denver, they're like, all right, you got to do better in year 2 or you're fired.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's Jacksonville 5 in terms of media pressure, Minnesota 4, and then the other 3 are way up there.
By the way, Baalke was San Francisco from 2011 to 2016 as the GM, and then he was out of the NFL until 2020 when he came back to Jacksonville.
And that was when Caldwell lost his job, and then Baalke got promoted to interim GM, got rid of Doug Marrone.
Fired. He could not get fired for anything, and then Trent Baalke shows up, and everybody got fired.
From 2017 to 2019, he worked for the league as a football operations consultant. I don't know what that is, but he wasn't a part of an NFL franchise at that point.
And everyone at the NFL got fired. It's like, oh, no. How everyone got fired. Oh, my God.
I don't know about that, but yes.
I'm just kidding. I don't think so. Yeah. So Jacksonville, the pros, of course, Trevor Lawrence. I would say that Jacksonville's roster is in worse shape than Chicago's. Right?
I don't know. They have a lot of young players. They have a ton of cap space. The weather's better. The tax benefits in Jacksonville. I think the big issue is the ownership and then however you feel about the general manager. And those are pretty non-small issues.
Yeah, you got Trevor Lawrence, the number 1 overall pick. You're probably going to take an offensive lineman or a defensive player.
You'll get Travis Etienne back, who didn't play at all this year.
Yep, that's true. Laviska Shenault, if used properly, good player. Marvin Jones, perfectly fine player. Josh Allen, the pass rusher. Stud. You got some players in here. There's more work to do. Still, Jacksonville is still in like year 20 of a rebuild.
Yeah, but again, I think that points to ownership, and it's not exclusive to Jacksonville. We see that time and time again. The Panthers, for example, who we may be talking about at some point.
I don't think we'll be talking about them, but maybe.
No. I mean, give us 12 months.
Yeah. I thought you were
going to say 12 hours.
Yeah.
Denver out of a job.
So Denver, out of all of these teams, probably has the best overall roster with the biggest gaping hole. And as we talked about ad nauseum in the offseason, it's the quarterback. If you told me that,
as Vic Fangio noted hours before he was fired.
Yeah, just backing the bus repeatedly over Drew Lock's face.
And over Peyton's face, saying, hey, give me a quarterback, maybe I'll win.
Yeah.
Firing warning shots to the next head coach. You don't have a quarterback, you're not winning in this division.
No doubt about it. Justin Simmons, Bradley Chubb. They traded Von Miller. The defense is still good. I would not be surprised if, depending on who they hire next, if we saw this defense take a kind of a step back from what it's been the last few years. Just because Fangio, we saw it with Chicago. Look, they got Matt Nagy fired. Fangio left, and that defense went from top 5 in the league to.
I don't know if that was among the top 10 reasons.
I'm just saying that his offense sucked, and right. So which defense is bad.
Right.
But then on offense, you have Garrett Bowles took a step back this year, but Noah Fant, Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Who am I missing? There's who's the other wide receiver I'm missing that they have that's good?
Tim Patrick plays
Noah Fant,
Deshaun Hamilton.
Yeah, Deshaun. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Albert Okwuegbunam.
Yeah, they have players on this roster, and you feel like you could go win with this roster if you had a quarterback. So the quarterback is definitely a negative. As Breech loves to point out, is the division a positive or a negative, Breech?
The division is a negative, Brinson. You got to compete against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, the Raiders are a playoff team this year, so you've got to catch all 3 of those teams.
Hey, Breech, remember 3 seasons ago when Brinson predicted that the Broncos and Joe Flacco were going to win the division?
I do remember that. Dixie Doo Dunkaroo.
Yep, it's broken. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? As I look at their recent history, they've not been great. In fact, you have to go back to 2016, the last time they had a winning record, and Although I say that this franchise feels like the most stable of the bunch we're talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe Miami, but I think.
Well, they're about to change ownership though. But I mean, as we point out, we'd almost rather have the unknown of mystery.
Do we have any idea who's in the running for these?
The NFL has curated a list of potential candidates, but we do not know. Okay. I don't believe.
What if it's Magic Johnson? Is that a plus or a negative? How is he as an owner?
And Wilson, talk about the Broncos being the most stable. I mean, part of that is like you have 4 franchises, like the Vikings never won a Super Bowl. Jacksonville's never won a Super Bowl. Chicago won theirs in 1985. The Dolphins' last one came in the 70s. And these teams just always, those franchises that you just don't feel like they haven't done enough to compete, but the Broncos always feel like they're doing enough. They're at least trying. They went out and got Peyton Manning. And I think if they could make a move to get a star quarterback before the 2022 season, I think they'll do it. So I think we're about to rank these teams. So hint on who I have.
Well, we were talking in the summer, if they had gotten Aaron Rodgers, then who was going to be the best team in that division?
Worth noting, by the way, so Joe Ellis took over in 2014, basically running the franchise after Pat Boland was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, RIP. Mm-hmm. The timing is kind of, interesting in terms of Joe Ellis and John Elway have been running the franchise, and now they've been bad for a while. They brought
the thing we say about John Elway all the time is that he cannot identify quarterbacks. Yeah. And then he said, forget it. I'm just going to go sign Peyton Manning. I think it was $25 million a year, which now sounds like a bargain. Because he couldn't draft. He loved Paxton Lynch. You go through the list of quarterbacks that they had. Tebow, Kyle Orton. I don't know if I think Jay Cutler was before probably John Elway. I'm not sure. But and then Trevor Siemian played in 2016 after Peyton Manning retired. Case Keenum came in. And didn't live up to the hype after that great year in Minnesota the year before. Your guy, Joe Flacco, the next year. They drafted Drew Lock. And I think at that point, Elway washed his hands of the day-to-day and went up to the corner office and took a more hands-off approach. But, again, all that said, they do a good job of identifying players. They've just struggled to find a quarterback that they haven't been able to sign named Peyton Manning.
We should – what was that Halloween noise? Devo? Is that you?
Devo fell out of his chair again.
We should point out that our colleague and good friend Jason Lockenfora wrote back into the middle, actually just a couple of weeks ago. This is spicy. Peyton Manning in ownership mix as Broncos sale could be completed by the spring.
Now that, based on the Manning cast, which you've watched much more closely than me, makes me feel like this could be a number 1 franchise.
If Peyton Manning gets involved in ownership of the Broncos, I want in. Like that would vault them to number 1 on my list if they weren't already there. We'll reveal.
I don't have any example of Peyton Manning doing something where I think to myself, what a moron. Like everything he seems to be well thought out.
Peyton doesn't get into something that is has a high likelihood of failure. If he gets in on the Broncos, he will I think he will succeed. Sources said former Broncos star quarterback Peyton Manning, who's very interested in a potential ownership piece in the franchise and a possible role in serving in a management position as well, has already had discussions with several of the groups expected to be favorites to land the team, and his strong ties to Denver, where his family has lived since his playing days, and universal respect throughout the football world would be a boon to any potential ownership group aligned with him. Oh, that was actually my house with the creaky door, I think.
There we go. I knew it. It's always you.
Yeah, always me. So yeah, the Manning would be a boon. We'll see how that goes. Denver, tough division, good roster, awesome place to live and play. Certain legalities in Denver.
Oh yeah,
gambling legal. That's what I mean, of course.
We know Breech is picking the Miami opening if he's a coach, just so he can go down to South Beach and get those 30 drinks.
I'm looking at this list and I'm glad that Brinson has been talking nonstop because I can't figure out where to rank anyone. This is like,
I don't know. Debo, do you remember the story? I think it was Super Bowl where Breech stayed an extra day, went down to South Beach and wanted to ask Spanky if he wanted to share a hotel room together.
I thought he stayed for like 3 extra weeks after Super Bowl 50. What was that? 54?
No, that was when Sean thing was when we were in Fort Lauderdale for writers meeting, and I had a buddy that lives in Miami, and I was going down to visit him for 2 days.
And Sean wisely said, "Absolutely not, under no circumstances."
He missed quite the time.
Yeah, you sent us a text at like 3 a.m. You're wandering across a bridge by yourself. Could have been you drowning in the river, Sean.
It was just so you guys had proof of where I was at that time in case I came up missing.
That's called an alibi. That's right.
So Miami and Minnesota. Miami, it's either a pro or con with Tua. Ownership in the front office, major con. City, major pro, as Breech points out. What else are your pros and cons of your city, Breech?
You just hit it. It's literally 75 degrees year round. So you definitely want to live there. The downside, I think you can kind of lump these jobs into two sides where there's already a GM in place and there's not a GM in place. So obviously Greer already being there is not ideal because you're gonna have to get on board with whatever he wants. If they want to keep Tua, you're gonna have to make Tua work. And so that's not ideal. You're gonna have to go in there loving Tua. And if you do, then it's the perfect job for you. And I think that's what it comes down. They have to find someone who can turn Tua into the next Justin Herbert or anyone else from that's been successful recently.
So if you guys are named head coach, are you rolling with Tua or are you not sold on Tua?
I mean, I wouldn't be thrilled taking a job knowing if I'm in that interview and Greer's like, we're not drafting a quarterback, we're not signing a quarterback, it's Tua. I'm probably not answering his phone for a second interview.
My point is Tua that I'm fine with rolling with Tua. I think he's shown improvement. I think he has a chance to get better. What you're done with him?
No. I would want the chance. I want to bring in some competition.
Josh Leggett, our resident Dolphins fan, says that Ross said that in his press conference, the new head coach will have a say on the QB.
That's what I was.
That's right, Josh. 3 shout outs in one podcast. By the way, I stumbled into this tweet. You guys know who Josh Gad is, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
The actor
from the Snow movie.
Yeah. In the history of the Miami Dolphins, there have been some historically dumb and bad moves. The firing of Brian Flores is perhaps the single worst decision this organization has ever made. This is not only a desperate move, it's a pathetic one. Shame on everyone involved. He continues, Miami fans and the Miami Dolphins organization have the exact goal to get out of this playoff drought that we've all lived through for 2 decades, but it finally felt like we're on the verge of something. There's no consistency. A carousel of coaches and QBs is tiring.
That's a long tweet.
I didn't know it was 2 tweets. I didn't know Josh Gad was a super fan. Kind of cool.
By the way, I just want to note this quickly. According to our buddies at Football Outsiders, Tua, in terms of the advanced metrics, in terms of value per play, ranks ahead of Matt Ryan this year, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, Taylor Heineke, Baker, Big Ben, Davis Mills, and Ryan Tannehill. And you won't believe this, Andy Dalton. He hasn't been terrible. He's been replacement level. And if you think he can get better, I get it. If you think he can't get better, what's plan B? Which is what I always say.
There's a well thought of prospect at quarterback that the organization invested a lot in and is willing to help you try to grow his potential. That's a plus unless you just scouted Tua and didn't like him. If that's the case, then you don't take this job because that's what got Brian Flores fired.
All right. Well, let's see out of us who loves Tua and who doesn't. Because if you don't, you're going to have Tua at the bottom of our ranking the vacancies list.
I know you're trying to get out of here, but one more. Minnesota.
Minnesota what?
Minnesota only has the roster is kind of going downhill. We think there'll be patience. You got to live in Minnesota. You play indoors, which is kind of nice. I love that stadium. Kirk Cousins, 1 year left on his deal. So you have the chance to maybe win early next year. But then what's your plan at quarterback? Justin Jefferson, stud. Dalvin Cook, stud. Some defensive players who are studs. If you hate Kirby Cousins and you're worried that you won't have a quarterback after that, cause for concern. Also, Aaron Rodgers. So,
yeah,
let's who
might not be
there
first in 2 years.
All right, Breech. Well, you're sick of me talking, so why don't you give us your list?
The whole list or just one?
You can go. I mean, it's going to take you 10 seconds to the whole list.
We did the pros and cons of the. Oh, you only have your 5th team ranked. Is that what happened?
I have them all listed. I have them all listed. I just don't love my list.
Okay.
Well, put it out there. Let's see what happens.
I have the Vikings at number 1.
At number what?
Number 1.
As the most attractive destination?
As the job I think has the best chance for
it's rank the vacancies. Which is you think the Minnesota Vikings Minnesota's the best vacancy?
I think if I was a coach looking for
a
job,
Breech.
What?
State your case for Minnesota.
Well, this team went 8-9. They have a lot of talent that we just talked about. Once you get the quarterback situation figured out, again, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be in the division forever. And once he's gone, that division is wide open. And I want to be in a wide open division. And the Wilfs have shown patience. We just saw Mike Zimmer coach there from 2014 till 2021. I don't want to be in a place where the ownership's going to pull the trigger after 2 years when I'm trying to build a team. So I think I'm putting the Vikings at 1.
Okay. Keep going. You got 4 more.
Broncos at 2. Jacksonville at 3. Dolphins at 4. Bears at 5.
All right. Yeah. I mean, again, we spent a lot of time talking about the ownership, and that's a huge concern. So I think I'm going to actually put Denver first because I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed that Peyton Manning's going to have something to do with it. And also, what are the chances, and maybe the chances are high, that you get an owner worse than Stephen Ross or Shad Khan in terms of their inability to hire good people below them that can be on the same page consistently? So I'll go Denver 1. I'll go Jacksonville 2 because of the salary cap space and Trevor Lawrence. Then I'll go Miami. And then I'll go the Vikings and then the Bears for the reasons we talked about.
Ooh, Wilson, Vikings at 4?
Kirk Cousins, I don't get behind. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, but he's only got 1 year left on his contract, so you're only stuck with him.
You might get something worse. And not only that, you think Aaron Rodgers is done. Last summer, I said, Aaron Rodgers is leaving Green Bay. He might come back. He's got pretty good there.
I don't disagree with that. I said he's got 2 more years at most.
I think the over-under is 2.5.
I'm still going under.
Okay. I will go. I have some caveats attached to my list.
Oh, gosh.
I will go Jaguars number 1.
Oh, I thought about putting Jacksonville. Balky sold me away.
Caveat is you got to be able to get Balky out.
No. Because if he's out, then I've got him at number 1. You can't have a caveat like that.
No. It is. I think a coach with enough cachet to come in and say, look, I will take this job. I will win. I will make Trevor Lawrence great, but I will not work with Trent Baalke. If you have to work with Baalke, it drops down the list for me.
But you just made the argument that in Chris Greer's case that he's always in the owner's ear. So Shad Khan might be like, well, Trent said this, so see you later. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if I'm the coach, and if I'm the, like, who would be the most, this class is maybe a bad, let's say Andy Reid, right? In 2013, Andy Reid was a free agent. Everybody's trying to hire Andy Reid. Like the Cardinals are trying to get him. The Scott Pioli resigned from the Chiefs because he knew that Andy Reid wanted to bring John Dorsey, friend of the pod, Scott Pioli, walked away from the Chiefs because he knew that Andy Reid was going to bring his own guy, and the Chiefs needed to move quickly because the Cardinals were trying to pursue Reid. So I think in this case, you have the cachet. You're not some unknown coordinator position coach who's like, so like you go in there, you say, listen, I'll take the job, but I want my own guy.
Well, who's that coach in this draft cycle? And this
I don't think there is one of this. But I mean, Urban kind of pulled the same thing, right? He's like, I get full run of it. Well, I mean, that's
all right.
Anyway, Jaguars 1 for me, and it's because Trevor Lawrence is there. Like, I just think if you have Trevor Lawrence, you can win. If you're not an idiot, as Darrell Bevel showed.
Okay.
At number 2, and I have 2 and 3 very close together. Vikings. I have the Vikings at 2.
I just don't see it, but okay.
I think they're stable. I think they're patient. And Mike Zimmer coached for 8 years.
How many of those times do you look happy?
He never looks happy.
Yeah.
Oh,
I saw him crack a smile once.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a dinner with his girlfriend.
Devo, do you have any news that we need to share on the full podcast?
Is Devo engaged?
No.
Whoa. Instagram kind of promotes recent activity, and I may have seen someone on this podcast follow Mike Zimmer's girlfriend on Instagram recently.
No, you.
Oh, not me. No, 100% not. I don't follow anyone on this.
Are we sure?
Yeah, you just lied about Spanky Wankman, so I don't. Yeah, let me.
He could have liked it. Shows if he liked it too.
Yeah, I don't think I liked it. Yeah, I don't do much on Instagram.
Someone on this podcast, I'll say.
It wasn't me.
I don't think it was. Maybe it was me. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, name names, Debo. I'll look right now.
He said it was you on the earlier podcast. Anyway,
well, Debo apparently just lied about Spanky Wankman.
All right. So anyway, I've got Vikings at 2. I do think you can win early and then figure it out with Kirk Cousins in the quarterback position. That it's concerning, of course, but I think you have a better chance at making the playoffs with the Vikings in 2022 than you do with the Broncos as things currently stand right now. Broncos, I do have at number 3, though. Good roster, no quarterback ownership change coming. If it's Peyton Manning, would probably slide him above the Vikings. And then I think the Bears and Dolphins are basically tied for me. And it probably comes down to, in this scenario, with the Bears, I mean, the McCaskey press conference, I was going to have a little bit higher because of Fields. And the McCaskey press conference just sent me flying down the list. But I do think with the Bears, while they don't seem to be patient at all, you do get to bring in, if you have the cachet as a coach, you can bring in a GM that that you can work with in a Pete Carroll, John Schneider type of situation, Andy Reid, John Dorsey type of situation. That is a bigger difference than already established Chris Greer, who has the ear of ownership. So I will go Bears slightly above Dolphins. Plus Aaron Rodgers, pain in the ass for sure in the division. The Dolphins have Josh Allen in the division locked in for the next 10 years. And Belichick just got Mac Jones, who we think looks pretty good, is going to keep his run going. 4-2 against Belichick wasn't good enough, and you better like Tua.
Yeah, you just mentioned that Brian Flores is great against Belichick.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying, is Miami's next coach gonna win 19 games in 2 years and go 4-2 against Belichick in 3 years? Probably not.
No,
that's a fair point.
Yeah, so all of a sudden it's going to be a wow. Did we might have realized what we had. But yeah, look, if the Bears ownership is a concern, otherwise I think I might like them a little bit more. I think these jobs are all pretty even.
By the way, I would like to call out Debo for false reporting on who I'm following, being what's her name, Zimmer's girlfriend. Debo, where are you getting this information? Twice now you've told untruths on this podcast.
This is an interesting look for me, who's typically regarded as one of the top liars in the office. I would argue one of the top liars out there.
You're a top liar?
I would classify myself
now
in
you
that
fall in the
category.
liar rankings.
Wait, you're admitting to making stuff up? Is that what I'm hearing?
I didn't have you pegged for a top liar.
I saw some stuff on Instagram. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying some things on Instagram. The Sean thing was maybe a little misleading, but that's just,
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to finding out the Instagram stories. That's something we'll have to check back in
on. All right. Anything else for the rankings?
No. We'll have to come back and remake our rankings after more coaches are fired this week, right?
I don't think we get another one.
You don't think we get more?
I mean, Matt Rule's not, well, Joe Judge might get fired, but I don't think Joe Judge gets fired until the new GM comes around. So.
Whoa, David Culley.
Yeah, David Culley get fired.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, hope ain't a plan, as they say.
All right. That's it for the Black Monday recap coach vacancy ranking show for Wilson and Breech. I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Smash that like button. Oh, Bama or Georgia?
I like Bama.
Bama, baby. Give me saving. I'm a little nervous about
Bama's losing because we just went unanimous.
The various people that are on Bama, including like these 3 donkeys. It's like all the sharp people are on Georgia. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you guys later.